The fluorescent hum of the university library was a familiar drone, a stark contrast to the vibrant, imagined jungle that consumed Dr. Elias Vance's mind. At 57, Elias was a relic himself, a brilliant archaeologist whose radical theories had long since earned him the scorn of his peers. His office, a chaotic testament to his obsession, was crammed with ancient maps, tattered journals, and stacks of obscure texts, all whispering of a civilization far grander than any known to have existed in the pre-Columbian Americas. For decades, he'd championed the idea of an advanced society hidden deep within the American Amazon, dismissing the prevailing academic consensus that only primitive tribes inhabited the region before European contact. "They call it fantasy," he'd often mutter, running a hand through his thinning, disheveled hair, "but the Earth remembers." His latest paper, detailing linguistic anomalies in indigenous dialects and strange geoglyphs visible only from the air, had been met with the usual derision. Another Vance delusion, Dr. Alistair Finch, head of the archaeology department, had scoffed during a faculty meeting. "He's chasing ghosts." Yet Elias persevered, fueled by an unshakable conviction and the faint, almost imperceptible tremor of something significant on the horizon. His only ally, Dr. Sofia Vargas, a sharp and intuitive linguist who'd once been his student, shared his quiet rebellion. She saw past his eccentricities, recognizing the raw genius beneath the layers of academic ostracism. Sofia believed in his passion, if not yet fully in his fantastic claims. She knew that Elias wasn't just looking for ruins. He was searching for a forgotten truth, a piece of human history deliberately erased or lost to time. The humid, distant whisper of the Amazon, thousands of miles away, felt closer than ever to Elias, beckoning him towards a destiny that would either vindicate him or shatter him completely. The journey was about to begin, a perilous venture into the heart of a mystery that had consumed his entire life. The Amazon swallowed them whole. The vibrant green canopy, once a distant dream on Elias's maps, now pressed in on them, a living, breathing wall of humidity and sound. The drone of insects was relentless, the air thick and heavy, each breath a struggle. Sofia, despite her academic background, adapted with surprising resilience. She learned quickly to differentiate between the chirps of harmless birds and the warning cries of lurking predators. Their small team, funded by a skeptical but intrigued private donor, comprised a local guide named Matteo, whose weathered face held the wisdom of generations in the jungle, and two porters. Matteo, initially wary of Elias's peculiar theories, became increasingly intrigued by the old archaeologist's uncanny ability to navigate, seemingly guided by an instinctual understanding of the ancient land. Elias, though physically less robust than his younger companions, possessed an almost supernatural stamina when it came to his quest. Days blurred into weeks. The initial optimism began to wane under the relentless sun and the constant threat of the unknown. Supplies dwindled and morale faltered. One evening, after a particularly grueling trek through a flooded section of the forest, Sofia found Elias hunched over a tattered, leather-bound journal, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We're close, Sofia," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "I can feel it. The legends speak of markers hidden in plain sight." He pointed to a crude drawing in the journal depicting a peculiar alignment of ancient trees. The next morning, fueled by Elias's renewed conviction, they pushed deeper. Matteo, following Elias's unusual directions, eventually led them to a clearing where, almost imperceptibly, a sequence of oddly shaped stones emerged from the undergrowth. Not natural formations, but weathered, forgotten carvings. A jolt of excitement, raw and undeniable, coursed through Sofia. This wasn't just a legend anymore. This was a trail. The discovery of the stone markers galvanized the team, replacing their weariness with a renewed sense of purpose. Each subsequent day brought a new, albeit subtle, revelation. They found more carvings, intricate patterns etched into ancient rock faces, and strangely precise alignments of large, unworked stones that seemed to point in a particular direction. These weren't the crude markings of transient hunter-gatherers. They spoke of intent, of a guiding hand, and a knowledge of astronomy that defied known historical timelines for the region. Elias, with a newfound vigor, would trace the patterns with his fingers, muttering theories about their purpose. A calendar, a map, a warning. Sophia meticulously documented every find, photographing, sketching, and cross-referencing with the linguistic fragments Elias had identified. The more they uncovered, the more Elias's fantastic theories began to anchor themselves in tangible reality. One afternoon, as a sudden torrential rainstorm turned the forest floor into a slick, muddy obstacle course, they stumbled upon what appeared to be a partially buried stone road. It was narrow, overgrown with centuries of roots and foliage, but undeniably man-made, and crafted with an astonishing precision for its age. The road led deeper into an increasingly dense part of the jungle, a path less traveled, almost forgotten by time itself. The significance of their findings was not lost on Matteo, who had initially dismissed Elias's quest as a fool's errand. His eyes, usually impassive, now held a flicker of awe, mixed with a growing unease. He recalled fragmented stories from his elders, tales of a place whispered about with fear, a place not meant to be found. The air around them seemed to grow heavier, not just with humidity, but with an unspoken sense of ancient power. As the rain hammered down, washing away the mud from the ancient stones, a chilling realization settled over them. They weren't just discovering ruins. They were disturbing something long dormant. News of their preliminary findings, sent via satellite phone, caused a minor tremor in the academic world. Photos of the carved stones and the unearthed road circulated, sparking curiosity and a grudging acknowledgement of Elias's persistence. However, skepticism remained rampant. Dr. Finch, from afar, dismissed the findings as isolated anomalies likely misinterpreted. Yet, the slight shift in the narrative emboldened Elias's few remaining funders, providing a desperately needed infusion of resources. More supplies were flown in, including better equipment for clearing the dense vegetation. But with this progress came a chilling new development. Subtle signs began to emerge, unusual disturbances around their camp, faint rustling in the undergrowth at night that wasn't animalistic, and the unsettling feeling of being watched. One morning, they discovered a small, intricately carved wooden figure placed deliberately on their camp table, an object they hadn't seen before. Its design was unsettling, depicting a stylized, almost monstrous face with hollow eyes. Matteo, his face paling, recognized it from ancient warnings. "This is a sign," he murmured, his voice laced with fear. "A warning to turn back." He spoke of local legends, not of a lost city of gold, but of a place of dread, an ancient evil sealed away. Elias, though unnerved, dismissed it as a psychological tactic by rival explorers, or perhaps even a mischievous tribe. Sophia, however, felt a cold dread settle in her stomach. The jungle, which had once felt merely challenging, now seemed to possess a malevolent intelligence, pushing back against their intrusion. The path ahead felt less like a discovery and more like an invasion. The deeper they went, the more the natural world seemed to resist, and the more palpable the unspoken threat became, a shadow growing with every step. The ancient road, once a faint trace, became clearer with each passing day. It led them to a towering, seemingly impenetrable rock face, overgrown with vines. Elias, guided by the intricate carvings on the stones they'd found earlier, noticed a subtle, almost invisible seam in the rock. With renewed effort and the aid of their tools, they began to clear away centuries of vegetation, revealing not a natural formation, but a colossal, intricately carved gateway. The sheer scale and precision of the stonework dwarfed anything known to have been built in the Amazon. It was clearly the entrance to something monumental. The air around the gateway was strangely still, devoid of the usual jungle sounds, as if the very forest held its breath. As the last of the vines were cleared, a hushed awe fell over the team. The gateway wasn't just an entrance, it was a work of art, depicting symbols and figures that Sophia, with her linguistic expertise, immediately recognized as being unlike any known Amazonian iconography. They were complex, almost mathematical in their precision, hinting at a forgotten script. Elias, his hands trembling, pushed open the massive stone doors, which moved with a surprising smoothness, revealing a vast, dark chamber beyond. A wave of cool, damp air, carrying the scent of ancient earth and something else, something metallic and strangely antiseptic, washed over them. Matteo hesitated, his fear palpable. "This place, it is not meant to be entered," he whispered, clutching a small woven amulet. But Elias, his eyes shining with a mixture of vindication and profound wonder, stepped forward. This was it, the culmination of a lifetime's work. The lost city, or at least its entrance, lay before them. Inside, the darkness was absolute, broken only by the beams of their powerful headlamps. The chamber opened into a labyrinthine network of passages, unlike anything they had ever encountered. The walls were not rough-hewn rock, but smooth, polished stone, some adorned with intricate carvings and symbols that pulsed faintly under their lights. The air was unnaturally cold, a stark contrast to the oppressive jungle heat outside. As they ventured deeper, they discovered vast, interconnected chambers, their architecture breathtaking in its complexity. There were towering pillars, impossibly balanced arches, and conduits that seemed to channel water or some other fluid through the city's heart. This was not merely a collection of buildings, it was a masterpiece of engineering, designed with a precision that hinted at technology far beyond anything imagined for its time. But the awe soon gave way to a chilling unease. There were no signs of life, no bones, no pottery shards, no everyday objects. The city was meticulously clean, as if its inhabitants had simply vanished. This absence was more terrifying than any destruction. Elias, usually effusive in his discoveries, grew quiet, his excitement tempered by a growing sense of dread. Sophia found herself translating some of the symbols etched into the walls. They weren't a language of celebration or history, but of warnings, of containment, and of a profound, agonizing fear. One recurring symbol, a complex geometric pattern, seemed to radiate a silent scream. The more they explored, the more the sense of emptiness grew, as if the city itself was a tomb, not just of a civilization, but of something far more sinister. The perfection of its design felt less like a testament to human ingenuity and more like a carefully constructed cage. The deeper they delved into the city, the more its unsettling nature revealed itself. They discovered vast, echoing chambers where colossal alien-looking machinery stood silent and inert, covered in a fine layer of dust. The purpose of these devices was incomprehensible, but their scale and precision hinted at immense power. The symbols Sophia was deciphering on the walls began to form a coherent narrative, a chilling story of a highly advanced civilization that had indeed thrived in this hidden city. But their history wasn't one of glory or peaceful progress. It was one of a struggle against something unspeakable. The recurring geometric symbols Sophia had identified now appeared with greater frequency, often accompanied by desperate pleas and warnings etched into the stone. The translations spoke of an entity, not supernatural, but something that had emerged from the earth itself, a force that consumed, absorbed, and corrupted. The city, they realized with growing horror, wasn't built for inhabitants. It was built to contain. The elaborate architecture, the complex conduits, the strange machinery. It was all part of a vast, desperate attempt to hold something at bay. The terrible history wasn't about a war or a famine. It was about an existential threat, a silent, unseen horror that had driven an entire civilization to its knees. The city, once a marvel, now felt like a colossal ancient prison, its silent halls echoing with the screams of a long-dead people who had sacrificed everything to contain a darkness that defied comprehension. Elias, his face pale, finally understood why the legends spoke of fear. This wasn't a lost city of triumph, but a tomb of profound, universal dread. The weight of their discovery pressed down on Elias and Sophia, far heavier than any artifact. The city wasn't a historical triumph. It was a chilling testament to a profound tragedy. The advanced technology they'd initially marveled at was, in fact, an intricate system of containment, designed to suppress whatever monstrous force lay beneath the city's deepest levels. The cryptic warnings Sophia deciphered spoke of a parasitic life form, a primordial entity that absorbed all energy, all life, leaving only an inert husk. The city's inhabitants, in a desperate final act, had managed to seal it away, creating a complex, self-sustaining mechanism to keep it dormant. The fear that terrified history wasn't a metaphor. It was a literal, visceral dread of something that could erase existence. Their excitement had evaporated, replaced by a cold, numbing fear. Matteo, whose ancestral warnings now rang with terrifying accuracy, urged them to leave immediately. "We have disturbed the seal," he pleaded, his voice trembling. Elias, however, was torn. The academic vindication he had craved for so long was within his grasp, but at what cost? Revealing this truth to the world would not only rewrite history, but might also awaken something that should remain buried. Sophia, pragmatic and terrified, argued for caution. The entity wasn't supernatural, but biological and potentially contagious. The risk of exposing it to the outside world was too great. The conflict between scientific revelation and existential threat weighed heavily on them, forcing them to confront the terrifying implications of their discovery. Their internal conflict was abruptly overshadowed by an external threat. A low, rhythmic hum began to emanate from the deeper levels of the city, growing steadily in intensity. The ancient machinery, dormant for millennia, was slowly, inexorably, coming back to life. Sophia's frantic deciphering of the final desperate warnings revealed the terrible truth. The containment system was failing. The subtle disturbances they had experienced in the jungle, the carved figure, the growing sense of unease, these weren't just warnings. They were early signs of the entity's awakening. The city was preparing to unleash its ancient horror. Simultaneously, the subtle signs of being watched in the jungle manifested into a direct confrontation. A heavily armed, shadowy group, who had been tracking their progress, appeared at the city's entrance. They were not academics or rival explorers, but mercenaries, clearly sent by someone with a keen interest in what lay buried within the Amazon. Their objective was obvious: to seize control of the city and whatever power it held. Elias, Sophia, and Matteo found themselves trapped between a reawakening ancient terror and a modern, ruthless force seeking to exploit it. The silent screams of the long-dead civilization now seemed to echo louder, urging them to act. They had to choose: reveal the truth and potentially unleash a global catastrophe, or fight to reseal the horror, knowing that their incredible discovery might remain hidden forever. The ancient city pulsed with a low, thrumming energy, the sounds of the reanimating machinery growing deafening. Elias, Sophia, and Matteo, with the mercenary group closing in, had to make a desperate choice. They couldn't simply let the entity loose, nor could they allow it to fall into the wrong hands. Using their combined knowledge, they formulated a desperate plan. Elias, leveraging his understanding of the city's design, identified a crucial control chamber, a last-ditch failsafe designed by the ancient civilization to either re-engage the containment or, failing that, self-destruct. Sophia, meanwhile, frantically deciphered the final sequence of commands needed to activate it. Matteo, with his intimate knowledge of the jungle, provided diversions and escape routes, drawing away the mercenaries. The confrontation was brutal. Gunfire echoed through the ancient halls as the mercenaries, driven by greed and ignorance, pushed forward. Elias, frail but resolute, faced them, buying precious time while Sophia worked on the control panel, her fingers flying across the ancient symbols. The parasitic entity, now partially active, caused strange distortions in the air, a sickening drain of energy that weakened anyone nearby. In a final, desperate act, Elias managed to trigger a localized collapse within the city, sealing off the deeper chambers and trapping a significant portion of the mercenary force. Sophia, having input the final command, watched as the colossal gateway they had entered began to slowly, inexorably close. With Matteo's guidance, they barely escaped, the rumbling of the city's self-containment echoing behind them. They emerged back into the humid jungle, bruised and traumatized, but alive. The city, and the terrifying truth it held, was once again swallowed by the Amazon, its secrets reburied, its silence restored. Elias, no longer seeking academic validation, looked at Sophia, a new, profound understanding in his eyes. The greatest discoveries, he realized, were sometimes those that remained hidden, protecting humanity from truths too terrible to bear. They carried the burden of their knowledge, forever changed, knowing that some histories are best left undisturbed. Remember to subscribe for more thrilling stories.